Hello and welcome back to Pure Coys TV. Today we will be looking ahead to Tottenham v Aston Villa at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this Sunday afternoon. It's a huge clash between two sides battling for European places, and we've got plenty to talk about. And I'm not alone today. I am joined by a very special guest, Scott from Holte End Talks, who will give us the Villa perspective ahead of what should be a cracking game. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to Pure Coys TV, and of course, check out and subscribe to Holte End Talks as well. Show both channels some love. Let's get into it. Scott, thank you for joining me, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Good. Before we start, guys, as I've said already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for both channels. Really would appreciate it. Scott, let's get into it, mate. How long and why Villa to start with, and how long have you been a Villa fan? And tell me about your channel.
So I'm 37 now. So I've been supporting Villa for as long as I can remember. So my first game, I would have been probably 4 or 5 years old when my dad took me. And so I live down south. I'm down near Brighton, so I'm quite far down. And it's just a family thing. My dad, my brother, my uncle, my cousin, my granddad. And to be fair, it just started because my granddad was up in Birmingham at the university. He wanted to take a game in, flipped a coin between Villa and Blues and picked Villa. And it stemmed from there. And yeah, I don't know any different. Like I said, mainly stems from my dad. I kind of feel like you got to follow your dad's team. I know some people don't, but we didn't really have much choice. And yeah, it's now moving on to my little boy, and it just kind of carries on from there.
It does, and you feel I feel terrible for making my son a Spurs fan because he's had pretty much 21 years of pain, to be honest with you. But I'm similar. My dad was a Spurs fan, so I didn't really have a lot of choice. But my granddad was a Villa fan, so I always keep a close eye on Villa as well. But tell me about your channel, mate. How long you been going, and how is it going?
So we started about 7, 8 months ago, and I listen to a lot of podcasts in the day when I'm at work. Obviously, mainly Villa related, some more football related, and I just love football. And I've said for ages, I should try and get on this podcast thing. And normally, because we drive up to Villa, we have a lot of time on our hands. So coming back, we would obviously always talk about it, going up, talk about our views. So me, my brother, and my cousin just thought, you know what, let's just start. It doesn't have to go anywhere. It can just be us expressing what we feel. I listen to loads of podcasts and think, I'm not saying their opinion's wrong and mine's better, but maybe do something different, interact with different people, because I kind of feel like you hear the same stuff all the time. And just thought that we'd give it a go. And then it was actually my eldest daughter and my niece kept saying, you need to get on TikTok. So then we started reaching out on TikTok, doing a few different videos and changing it up slightly. We've had quite a positive response on that. And the YouTube is just, growing casually. And yeah, just enjoying it. There's no pressure from our side. We just love talking about Villa. Everyone's not going to agree with what we say, but that's the whole point of being a football fan, I think.
Yeah, that's the joy of it, isn't it? It's that we're not going to agree with everyone. They're going to be people that think that one player's great, and we might think he's rubbish, or vice versa. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm the same. TikTok, I find TikTok quite brutal though at times. There's some characters on that.
Yeah, I think we tend to do a weekly episode where we upload that to YouTube, either a preview or maybe a preview and a review, and then a TikTok. We kind of mix it up. We might clip up some obviously bits from the actual podcast, and then try and do the odd slightly different video, or maybe look at a certain player to mix it up. But yeah, again, we're because we're quite fresh to it. We're just building an okay following. But yeah, like I said, there's no pressure. We just love talking about Villa, and that's ultimately what it's all about for us at the moment.
No, absolutely. So, tell me about your summer signings, because I'll be honest with you, I I'm a bit disappointed with Villa from what I've seen so far of the summer, and this, I assume they'd be like right near the top, and they still might be towards the end of the season, I think. Do you think the end of the season last year hit Villa hard? Because that final game at Old Trafford was a bit of a kicker, wasn't it? How some of those VAR decisions were crazy. As you know, as a fan who's not got a thing in any of them, I just think, wow, some of the decisions. I think Villa were robbed, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has stemmed on from the last game against United. We were terrible on the day, so I can't really sit here and say that decision would have changed the outcome. But it definitely played a part. And I think over the course of the summer, we've had obviously massive PSR issues.
Yeah.
And so I won't go too much into it, but we're obviously working with a hand, one hand, you could say two hands tied behind your back. If you look at obviously our recent success, if you want to call it that, qualifying for Champions League, we, in terms of like sponsorship deals for Villa, that they're at like an all-time high for the club, and the money that's coming in, and we obviously can't spend anything. I think the sale of Ramsey to Newcastle didn't go down very well with a lot of members of the squad, and there was quite a few people that come out after the sale in terms of players that said, like, we don't want to hear any negativity about Ramsey going. There's a lot more to it. We're obviously in a place where we will never really know what's happened over the summer. A lot of talk about Martinez going. Obviously, that in the end didn't come to anything. I don't think that helped. And ultimately, we don't have the resources or the spending power because of PSR of your Tottenhams, your Chelseas, Uniteds, and it baffles me still that United are in £1 billion worth of debt and can go and spend hundreds of million,
Crazy.
are doing it all properly, got owners that want to spend money, and ultimately can't because the rules don't allow it. And I think we've just hit that point where we probably just have to consolidate this season. We obviously signed a couple. They brought in a winger, Evan Gasson from Nice, who it looks a little bit raw, I would say, at the moment. He's got better as the games that have gone on. Harvey Elliott obviously coming from Liverpool.
Quality player. Quality.
Isn't a bad signing, but at the moment, he's not really starting games. There's been a bit of talk that Emery doesn't like how he's adapting to the style of the team, and that he wants him to slow down slightly. But I think as the season goes on, he'll obviously prove to be a good signing. And Sancho on the last day, I don't mind it. I don't think it sets the world alight, but I think it's a good player, something slightly different. But we went into the start of the season ultimately losing Asensio, Rashford, Bailey, and Ramsey. I think any team would suffer from that, and because we hadn't really replaced them straight away, I just think the first few games, that's why we didn't pick up any points. Last four, we've obviously done slightly better in all. I think 4 wins in a row in all competitions. So I feel like we have kind of turned it around. The performances from the eye test haven't been, 10 out of 10, nowhere near yet. But I think we needed to just build the confidence slightly, which we've done from the last international break to the one that's going on now.
I think it's similar to Tottenham in the fact that, we're not playing fantastic football at the moment. We haven't clicked at all. Really like Frank. I think he's a breath of fresh air compared to what we've had the last 2 years under Ange. And I think a lot of fans who were very positive about Ange, who maybe weren't Spurs fans, are now seeing what he really is like at Forest. He is not a good manager, and he had us wide open every single game. I mean, last season was horrific, albeit we won a trophy, which was fantastic. So yeah, this season Spurs haven't clicked at all yet, but we are getting results. We're drawing a few, we're winning a few, and the only real defeat we've had was against Bournemouth, which we were absolutely woeful in. But I think it's going to be a really interesting game at the weekend because Villa have got a pretty good record against Spurs.
Yeah,
The last 10, I think you've won 6 of them, and you've won 3 of the last 5 at White Hart Lane. So I think it's going to be a really I actually thought our record was a lot better in the last 10 against you. I think it's because of the 3 or 4 wins we've had have been by high margins, like 4-0s or 4-1s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game. Are you happy with Emery, or are you seeing any chinks in his armor?
In my lifetime, I can't argue with what he's done. There was a lot of grumbles when we went through the sticky patch at the start of the season. Maybe he's run his course, and do we need to change? And I was just thinking, it's absolute madness. Ultimately, we would struggle to find a better manager than Emery. It's all well and good saying he's going through a bad period, we need to replace him, but who do you replace him with? I think you've seen it yourselves. I like Thomas Frank. I think that's a really good appointment. But prior to that, after Pochettino has left, you've had a lot of different managers, and Villa don't really want that. We had that with Gerrard before; it didn't work out, and Emery has enough credit in the bank that he could go through a rough patch and show that he can turn it round. And I think, like I said, any Villa fans that were calling for him to get sacked, you've got to just look in a bigger perspective to think, what has he done since he's taken over? And, we were languishing at the bottom of the table. He's turned us into a very good football team. Champions League football. I never thought I'd see Champions League football for Villa. 3 years in Europe since he's come in, and you can't argue with that. And I think his challenge now is to turn us from, similar to you guys again, to turn us from, say, a nearly team to getting over the line. And, we've had 2 semi-finals that we've lost, one in the conference league, and then the FA Cup semi-final last year. It's just getting over the line to, win a trophy, or, ultimately that's the goal.
Yeah, I don't actually Villa fans out there who want Emery out.
There was a few, and again, social media, you can't listen. You know what it's like. It's how much you want to look into it. But even like my brother and my uncle were like, oh, God, like it's getting a bit testing. But I just think, like I said, if you step back from it, there's not that many great managers, and Emery on paper, his record, he's got to be, in my opinion, in the top 3 managers in the Premier League. So you've got to weigh it up. Can Villa get a better manager? Probably not. Has he done really good up to this point? Yes. And is he allowed a few games where we struggle? Yes. But I think in the last 4, he's shown, look, I can turn it around. I just need to set my team up, maybe make a few little tweaks. But I think that's what good managers do. If it's not going right, they find a different way to win. And he's done that in the last 4 matches.
Absolutely. And like you say, you've lost 4 of your first team players. And that's not easy to replace, is it? And I like the signings that Villa have made. Don't know too much about the signed guy. Is he French, or he come from the French league, didn't he?
Yeah, come from that. Yeah, I would say he's if he turns into like a Semenyo, because I think he's from Ivory Coast. So if he turns into a Semenyo, then we're happy. We're laughing. But his numbers were pretty good last year for Nice, and so far he was a bit shaky to start with, but he puts in a good shift going backwards. Matty Cash has been a lot better this season. I actually think that's because he's got more of a workhorse in front of him. I just think he needs a goal, or he needs an assist, and that would probably settle him down slightly.
Yeah.
But Villa struggle for width. The season when we got Champions League, we had Leon Bailey, who had a season of his life. But we don't have a lot of width in our team, and I do feel Gesson in the team, and maybe Sancho when he's fully fit and firing, will give us a bit more width in the team, which we don't have that many options out wide.
What do you think you're missing? Because for me, looking in from an outsider, as much as I like Watkins, I really think you're missing like that 20 goal a season striker, a bit like Spurs.
Yeah, I think again the issue with Ollie is he'll miss chances, and but he's guaranteed to get you 15 goals, and any other striker that comes in, knows, similar to obviously when you guys had Kane, knows that if Watkins is fit, he's probably going to play. And I think that's obviously the hard bit. We had it with Duran. He come in, started playing really well and scoring goals. And then Ollie kind of, I'm not saying throws his toys out the pram, but you can tell he's not happy if he's not starting. And then we had it after with Rashford coming at the end of on loan towards the end of last season. Ollie was left out of the big games against PSG, and Rashford started through the middle. But missing, I think I would have loved us to have gone out and signed a Morgan Gibbs-White or Semenya or someone like that, and they might be slightly above our level, and they might be a little bit out of reach. But I think if we had the money and PSR wasn't an issue, I think that kind of player that can do slightly something different, something different. We're quite heavily reliant on Morgan Rogers, and he's not started the season well at all. And I think that's kind of showing that we're maybe just missing a bit of maybe one more player across the three behind Ollie. Because like I said, Ollie's going to start regardless. And I don't think there's too many better number nines out in the league than Ollie, because I think a lot of clubs are crying out for a proper number nine. But maybe a more of a flair player, like the Kudos signing for you guys. He's come in, he's been great. We're maybe missing a player like that. But again, I'll go back to the PSR. We don't necessarily have the money to go and spend at the moment to get a player like that.
Yeah, no, it's weird, isn't it, as to what you think you're missing as a fan? Because for me, I mean, I've been so used to Harry Kane scoring 25, 30 goals a season for Spurs that when we get a striker who's only scoring 12 or 13, it's just like, well, that's not good enough, But then other players are chipping in, whereas when Kane was hitting 35 goals, say, he would be scoring most of the goals.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just learning that other players have got to score, and there aren't many Kanes in the world, so not
No.
many teams have a Harry Kane. But I think, yeah, I do think Villa, if they had a top class, a 25 goal a season striker, I think they'd be. I like Villa. I saw them last season, and they were a team for me. They were the team I wanted Spurs to be, because I think we're very similar in stature. Would you say that? I mean, it's one of my questions. Like, are Villa a big club? Because, like I said earlier, I think so many people have grandeurs their own side. I think Tottenham are a massive club, but you look at actually our history in recent years, we've won absolutely bugger all. So maybe we're not. Do you class Villa as a big club?
Yeah, I think similar to that. I would say I would class us in a similar kind of stature. I think obviously Spurs, if you want to look at it off the pitch, they've got bigger revenue streams at a much bigger stadium. They've moved into the new stadium, which is unbelievable. Villa is still, I wouldn't want us to move away from Villa Park. But it's the trophy thing. I would see us as a big club, but even I have to say, well, we've won the European Cup in '82. I wasn't even alive, so I can't really claim that. In my lifetime, I've seen us win 2 League Cups and get the playoff win in the Championship. So in my adult life, I've only seen us win the playoff final at in the Championship, which for a club like Villa we shouldn't really be bragging about. Which I'm not bragging about it, but I think it's hard to win a trophy. It is really hard to win a trophy. You guys have seen it, and I think that is what's missing. I think that would then put Villa back on the map. And like I said, being down here, a lot of my friends would always say, Villa are rubbish, or mid-table, or they're going to get relegated. Obviously, when I'm up in Birmingham, obviously you know how big Villa are, and if you listen to a lot of players and ex-players, they'll obviously say the same thing. But ultimately, you've got to win a trophy. I think at some point we're not going to win the Premier League, and we've already gone out the League Cup this season, and I think that's probably disappointing. We've got 3 chances to win a trophy, and we've already gone out the League Cup, so you're down to the FA Cup and the Europa League this year. And can we win? Can we do what you guys did and win the Europa League? That'd be great. Or an FA Cup would be even better than that.
Yeah, I think you got every chance of winning the Europa League. It's not. I mean, I'm saying it now. It was pretty hard watch last season. Sometimes European games can be really dull for whatever reason. But I think Villa have got every chance. I think they're the strongest side, or one of the strongest sides in Europa League. But what are your expectations for Villa this season? What are you expecting from them?
I think if we can get into Europe again, I think going from last year, obviously yourselves are going to be a lot better. Chelsea would be better. United, you'd expect them to be better. I think the teams like Bournemouth and Brighton will be pushing as well. So I think it's harder. It gets harder each year to get into the European spaces. But I just think if Villa can just, even if it was the Conference League, and I'm not knocking the Conference League, but I just think being in Europe each year, just it just keeps you ticking along nicely. And yeah, I think it will be more of a season where we consolidate. But I would ideally top 7. I think on paper, and if we get it right, we are probably the 7th best team in the league. We did a table prediction on our channel at the start of the season. I think I had Villa finishing 6th. I'd probably drop it down to 7th now. But yeah, I think we'll be there or thereabouts. But like I said, you've got obviously you City, Liverpool, Arsenal are pretty set, but you guys I think will be strong. And then the likes of Newcastle, Everton look pretty good so far. Whether they can sustain it, I think there'll be a few challenging.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty much there with you. I think when I did my where Spurs would finish at the start of the season, I said if we finish in a European place, whether that's a conference, I'd take the conference because after winning the Europa last year, just that feeling of winning a trophy, I'd quite happily go into the conference and try and win that. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's going to be. I think I see the top 4 as pretty much like you said. I think Chelsea probably creep into the top 4, and then you're looking at Newcastle, Villa, Spurs, Bournemouth, maybe a Brighton, maybe a Palace. They've started well,
yeah,
and we're forgetting United. I know they've been pretty woeful this season, but the players that they got, you would think that they will pick up sooner rather
yeah.
than later. What are your thoughts on United? Just changing the subject.
Um, I just, I mean, I think Amarim's lucky to still be in the job. I mean, part of me loves it because we've had so many years of United just winning everything and kind of think it's great to see that they're doing awfully. Um, the Europa League final last season, I didn't want United to win. I was cheering on Tottenham. I was just thinking it would be typical United that they have finished where they finish and still win a trophy. I think they bought well in the summer. I've got to say, I think Mbeumo and Cunha were good signings. I just don't think they've got the players to play how Amarim wants to play, and lacking a lot of leaders. And I just think teams have got better. Tottenham are better, Villa are better, Bournemouth, Brighton, them teams that we've already kind of alluded to. And United don't have a given right to finish anywhere. And I think you saw that last season. Teams aren't
Yeah.
scared of Old Trafford. When I was a kid growing up, I could pretty much write off every time Villa played United. Playing United will lose. They're the best team, the best players, the best manager. And, for the main, people couldn't get close to them. Where I think now they've dropped so far down that people do need to realise that they don't have a given right to be up there. And I think if they had lost Fernandes in the summer, they would have been in big trouble. And listen, I don't think anyone's his biggest fan for how he acts on the pitch unless you love United. But I think if they were to lose him or if he was to get a bad injury, player for player, I think Villa have probably got a better 11. I think Spurs probably have a better 11. But I think they'll do better than last year. But I think if Amarin stays in the job, they'll be mid-table.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I look at United's squad and I look at their team and I think it should be a good side. But I said it last season, I think United might be too big for him. He's done great in Portugal, but that's Portugal. This is the Premier League. It's a lot different. And United, no matter how bad they're doing, they are, you know, give or take Real Madrid, the biggest club in the world. So it's a
Yeah,
massive job for whoever takes takes over after Amarin if Amarin does lose his job. What are your thoughts on Spurs, mate?
Like I said, I think getting Thomas Frank in is a bit of a masterstroke, actually, because I think what he brings is stability, a level-headedness. He never seems to get too high or too low. I think if you look at his Brentford team, they were hard to beat, entertaining, and would always be in the game. You never really see Brentford go and lose 4 or 5-0. They pick up good results against the bigger teams, and stuff like that. And then I think if you look at the signings, I think Kudos has obviously done well from what I've seen. I know his last season at West Ham, he maybe wasn't as good as his first one, but he seems to have started really well. I really like the Paulinia signing. I think that is, if you're, from what I saw from Tottenham last year, they were lacking maybe a bit of bite in the middle. If you were playing against a Bentancur or a Sarr or, Bergvall, someone like that, I feel like you could have maybe overrun Tottenham, where I think Paulinia brings a bit still, but he can play. And I would have loved Villa. We're quite stacked in the centre of the park, but there was a few loose links to him, and I thought that would have been a good signing, a real good signing. I think he's not going to set the world alight, but what he brings, leadership, I said, a bit still, can play. And again, I think if you can keep the two centre-backs, which I think everyone says it really for Spurs, Van der Ven and Romero, very good. It's just obviously keeping them fit. I think when we played you last season, I think Van der Ven was injured, and I was like, that's a touch.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper, I'm not sure on the goalkeeper. I think that's maybe somewhere you can improve. And if you had Harry Kane now in this team, I'd be laughing, because I think that, I've not seen too much of Spurs, but the goalkeeper and maybe the number 9 is maybe where you're lacking, because I think two centre backs, your fullbacks are pretty good. You can mix it up in the middle now. Maybe Paulinia's in there, and you can add a Sarr or a Bergvall or a Bentancur. Archie Gray, obviously I like Archie Gray. Wingers are pretty good. I think Kudos brings a slightly different angle to your attack. But yeah, maybe just at the top of the pitch. I don't know what's going on with Solanke. I know that he obviously hasn't really featured.
God knows. We've all season it's been like, oh, he's got a slight ankle problem, and then he come back to training, then he's out again. He's had a small operation he had like 3 weeks ago, I think. So apparently he's back in training. I'm not sure how long. Every interview they seem to do with Frank before a game was like, yeah, he's nearly ready. He's nearly ready. And this Mawani we got on loan,
Yeah,
who's hardly kicked a ball yet because he's had a dead leg for like forever. I think that apparently he's just not fit. He's had no pre-season because he thought he was going to go to Juventus. So hasn't trained with PSG, and he's come to Spurs and is totally unfit, which is just a really bad signing, because if you get a player on the last day of the window, you want him to come in and hit the ground running.
yeah,
And I don't know whether you've got the same with Sancho, but the fact that he's just not played any games it just feels like a wasted signing.
yeah. I think it's similar to Sancho. I don't think they're trying to get the load into his legs and build him up slowly. He's been ill a couple of times, also they've said, which probably hasn't helped. But yeah, you kind of feel like, if you're on loan, you want them to play 30, 35 games and actually make the loan worthwhile. The one that didn't shock me with Spurs was that they signed Matthias Tell permanently, because when I saw him against Villa in the 2 games, I thought, I know there was quite a bit of hype about him, but I just thought, he doesn't look like that level player. I don't know what he's been like this season, but from what I've seen of him, I just thought, that's maybe a bit of an odd one.
Yeah, that was I think most Spurs fans feel exactly the same. Strange signing. We already have Odegaard out on the left as a young player, and Tao's come in, and I mean he did score a good goal in the Villa game last season, the cup
Yeah,
game, which we lost 2-1.
yeah,
But apart from that, he's done absolutely nothing. Nothing so far. And he is a kid, he is only 20. But I just think if you're going to spend £35 million, you can spend it better elsewhere. As a Spurs fan, I think we are short on the left, definitely short up front. I think Solanke and Richarlison need to go in the summer. I agree. Paulinho was a great signing, but I still think we're missing that number 8. which is why I'm disappointed we didn't end up getting Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think Spurs and Villa are going to be pretty much in for the similar kind of players. We seem to be in the ranks. I heard a lot of Spurs fans during the summer saying that we should be signing Cassand.
yeah,
I've seen nothing of him, but so I didn't know. But a lot of Spurs fans were like, "Why has he gone to Villa? Spurs should be signing him." But
yeah.
yeah, so it's weird. And I really like Harvey Elliott. I want Spurs to sign him as well. So yeah, I think we will be in around the same kind of players again, probably in January and the summer.
Yeah, I think like you touched on earlier, I think we're kind of similar kind of stature, and that we're kind of vying for the same positions. I don't know. It might have been you, but I think I did say Munger's White. If you can get that done, is an incredible signing. I really, I thought, and like I said, I would love Villa to have signed him. And I think obviously Maddison being out doesn't help. I like Maddison for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard. You spent a lot of money on Travis Simmons, who, looks good technically. Is he maybe the right stature for the Premier League? I think time will tell. Quite lightweight at the moment, isn't he? Which is hard
Yeah, I think
sometimes like that.
it's one of them. Is I just don't think he's not come. I expected him to come in, maybe hit the ground running. It's taken him a little bit of time to adapt, but you can see bits of magic that he does, and you're thinking, oh, okay, there's a player there.
Yeah,
But sadly, I think it's going to. And Kudus is weird because I watched him at West Ham, and I thought, okay, he's decent, but it wasn't until he came to Spurs when actually the ball goes to him, just sticks. He can
yeah,
have three players around him, and people can't get close to him. He's not going to beat his man every time. He does lose the ball sometimes, but I just love the way when it gets to him, it just sticks to him. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting game. What's your expected lineup for Villa? How do you expect Villa to line up against Spurs?
uh, I would imagine that they will go obviously Martinez in goal, Cash at right back, Konsa is nailed on. Mings had a slight injury before the international break, and Torres was back in at centre back, so I'd imagine he'll still be there. And because of the threat of Kudos, I would say Luca Dean starts left back. He has kind of interchanged Maatsen and Luca Dean slightly. Maatsen is a lot more dynamic and offers you more going forward, but I think because obviously we're away, he'll probably go Luca Dean. Then I would imagine he'll go Kamara and Bogard. Bogard is a young Dutch lad he's been in and around the first team for the last few years, but he's played quite a few times this season.
Okay.
We are struggling. Tielemans is out injured still, which is a massive blow to us because he is the one that really progresses the ball through the lines. So that's a massive loss. McGinn was playing more centrally. But again, I think because we're away at Spurs, he'll probably go Bogard, McGinn, Rodgers, and probably Guess on the right. So them three in behind. Ollie, if Ollie's fit, because the England match, he obviously took a bit of a knock.
Yeah.
We don't know how that is, but if he doesn't start, I'd imagine Marlon starts up front. I think that the issue is the last game that we played against Burnley, he started Watkins and Marlon and went more of it wasn't a 4-4-2, but it was a version of a 4-4-2. Marlon scored 2 goals. But I just think, again, I know I've touched on it, because we're away at Tottenham, I can't see him going 4-4-2. I think he'll revert back to the 4-2-3-1 kind of formation. Try and match you up. And yeah, would I go with that? Probably not. I think I'd probably go McGinn in the middle instead of Kamara, and then have maybe a Rodgers left and a Harvey Elliott in there, or something like that. But we seem to have a midfield made of glass at the moment, and we're struggling to get an Arna fit and Barkley fit, and with Tielemans as well. So we are a bit lightweight in the middle, although we have lots of players there. They just seem to all be on the injury table.
I forgot that you got Barkley as well.
Yeah, back against Burnley, and had a
Okay.
few. And Arna is just always injured, and he was injured and then seemed to be fine to go away with Belgium and actually start the last game, which is so frustrating because you think you've not played the season, but you can be fit for Belgium. So they might be back, but I can't see either of them starting. But I would imagine that's how we'll line up. And just, I think the midfield will be crucial. I think Paulina against Kamara. Kamara's playing really well this season. And whether it's McGinn or Bogard in the middle, I just think that would be a key battle in there.
Yeah, no, listen, whoever you play is going to be a tough game because Villa Spurs is always interesting. I think Spurs will line up. I think Basuma's very similar to Anane. Basuma's not played all season. I know he's kind of been out of favour a little bit, but he's come back fit. He's gone straight off to international duty and got injured within about 6 minutes, I think. So I think he's going to be out. Bergvall got injured for Sweden during the week. Whether he's going to be fit, I don't know. So I'd expect the back five to probably be the same with Vicario, Porro, Van der Ven, Romero, and Doggy. Though I thought Spence played really well for England. Liking what I'm seeing from Spence. A little bit arrogant sometimes, but I'm, I haven't got a problem with that. I think he's really talented player.
Yeah,
Midfield wise,
a long time coming for Spence because I think when you guys, he was unbelievable, and then obviously it's taken him a while to obviously get a solid run of games, but he was a class fullback until he all right, playing slightly lower down, but I thought that when you signed him, I thought, yeah, that's a good signing, one for the future, and he seems to have, he has done well for England, and I think he's got every chance of going to the World Cup next year if he carries on.
Yeah, I agree. I think when Rio Ferdinand says that you're one of the best one-on-one defenders in the Premier League, I think when he talks, you kind of listen.
Yeah,
I think he is a cracking defender, and it's nice because Porro is completely opposite. Terrible defensively, but really good going forward. But midfield wise, I think it'd be Polini and probably Bentancur. I'm hoping he doesn't play Polini, Bentancur, and Saar because that's just workmanlike. I'm hoping that he sticks Xavi Simons in the 10 and then plays Kudus. And I would imagine it'd be Odegaard. And then I think the only option we got up front is Richarlison, which is just horrific. I think he's probably one of the worst strikers in the Premier League. I just don't rate him. What do you think of Richarlison as an outsider looking in?
I just feel like he doesn't quite have the consistency that you need to be at a top 7, top 8 club. I think when he was at Everton, he could probably get away with not scoring for 4 or 5 games. I don't think you can get away with it at a club like Tottenham. I think you've got to be consistent. And is he a number 9 or is he a winger? I think he's still in that bracket. I don't think he's ever been a natural number 9 like a Solanke. And I think at Everton he played a lot of games from the left, and I think you're asking a lot of him to go and be the solo striker. It's a slightly, it's a completely different role. Is he at Tottenham's level? Probably not. I think if he went and signed for maybe a Brighton or that kind of team, I think he would get the plaudits that he was probably getting at Everton. But yeah, I when he was Brazil, starting for Brazil, I was thinking like, wow, this is mad. Maybe people are seeing stuff that we're not, but yeah, I don't think he's quite at probably where you guys want to be. You'll know that better than me, but that would be my opinion on it.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it's harsh, and I feel bad for constantly slating Richarlison because he does come up with the odd goal, and you're like, oh, what a goal! But I think you're bang on. I think at Everton he was fantastic because Everton were at that time still are a little bit very workmanlike, weren't they?
Yeah.
They all worked as a team, and he was part of that. I think at Spurs, maybe as the number 9, you're expected to do a little bit more, and it's hard to follow Harry Kane. I don't think many strikers can. Let's get a score prediction for the game before we wrap up. What are you going with?
I will go for 1-1. I think it would be key. Villa's next 2 games after this are City and Liverpool. So I think it would be if we can carry on the little mini run and not lose. I think going to Tottenham and getting a point, I would take that now. Can we catch an off day and maybe play? Like I said, we've picked up, but the eye test still probably says we're not quite where we were last season. And I know you've had some good results, but maybe this is still a good time to play you because Frank is still stamping his identity and changing a few players here and there. But I'd be happy with a 1-1.
Yeah, no, I think it is going to be a tight game. I think if anyone wins, it will be by the odd goal. And like I said, the last 10 games there hadn't been a draw, so there's been 4 wins for Spurs, 6 wins for Villa. I've I've got to go for a Spurs win at home. I think it will be tight, 2-1, 2-1 maybe, but again, it could go either way. But I think with the way Villa have started and the injuries they have, I think is a really good chance and it's a really good time to play Villa, even though they've won. Is it 4 in a row? I know they've won 3 in a row, but
Yeah, 4 in a row, 2 in the Europa League, Bologna and Feyenoord, and then 2 in the Prem. But like I said, the eye test would say that we're not quite where we want to be just yet. But there are signs that it's coming back. I think the sooner Morgan Rogers sorts himself out, I don't know what is going on with him. He looked okay in the first England game, but was terrible in the second. And he's not been good this season. And we're so heavily reliant on Rogers. I think the sooner he sorts himself out, great. Listen, maybe the weekend is the game that he does turn up. But yeah, it has been a bit of playing with 10.5 men at times, and I know that's
really,
harsh, but he's been pretty poor this season. But like I said, maybe this is the weekend he turns it around, puts in a good performance.
yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because again, during the window, I was very much like, Spurs were being linked with Rodgers for like, and I know they were talking silly money, like 80 million and plus. I was like, just go get him, just go get him. Last season he was amazing, but yeah, I didn't realize he'd started as poorly
I don't
as what he
know
maybe has.
if there's been a bit of maybe a Tottenham or a Chelsea, and maybe his head's been turned
Unsettled him.
ever
Mm.
so slightly. But Emery loves him. Emery absolutely loves it. Rodgers, if Rodgers is fit, Rodgers starts, and Rodgers doesn't come off. So I think he's got to play himself back into form. I think Emery said that himself. But yeah, I think there might be a little. And he was very good friends with Ramsey.
Yeah.
They're professional footballers, but that might have had a slight influence. But again, if he wants to get to the World Cup next year, he needs to start performing. He can't just go off what he did last season. He got an assist in the last game against Burnley, so maybe that will kick him on.
Yeah. No, well, it's a really interesting conversation, mate. Loved having you on. Guys, if you haven't already, smash a like, hit a subscribe, and subscribe to Holte End Talks as well. He is growing slowly, and I think it's really interesting getting a perspective of every club. I like subscribe to most other teams because it's interesting to find out what other teams' fans think of their players. And yeah, but thanks for joining me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, mate. It's really good. I'm used to being the host on my channel, so it's been nice to actually to answer a few questions. But I won't wish you too much luck for the weekend. But yeah, for having me on, and we'll give you a little shout out on our channel as well. And we'll do it for the reverse fixture.
Nice one. Yeah. Cheers. Thank you very much, guys. Get over, smash a like, hit a subscribe to Pure Coys TV and to Hot End Talks. And we will see you on the next show. And as always, stay positive, stay poised, and stay Pure Coys.